A lawsuit filed by Brain Flores against the National Football League. How should the players respond? RG3 joins the show for an impactful conversation. And where do the Giants and the Dolphins stand now? Two teams at the center of allegations of the lawsuit. So much more on a pivotal day in the history of the NFL. Now more on our lead story. Former Dolphins coach Brain Flores is suing the NFL. Three teams allegedly accusing them of racism and lack of integrity in hiring practices in a 58-page lawsuit filed in Manhattan federal court Tuesday that seeks class action status. Flores alleges discrimination regarding his interview processes with the Broncos and Giants and his firing last month by the Dolphins. Flores says Dolphins owner Stephen Ross attempted to incentivize him to tank or purposely lose games shortly after he was hired in 2019, with Ross allegedly offering Flores $100,000 for every game the team lost that season. Flores says that as the team won games late in the season, Dolphins GM Chris Greer told him that Ross was mad that Flores' on-field success was compromising the team's draft position. Flores also says Ross pressured him into recruiting a prominent quarterback at the end of 2019 season, which Flores refused so as to not violate the NFL's rules on tampering. Flores alleged the Giants, interviewed him last month for their head coaching vacancy for no other reason than compliance with the NFL's Rooney Rule, which requires teams to interview minority candidates for their open positions. The rule says in part that teams must hold an in-person interview with at least one external minority candidate for any GM or head coach opening. Here's Flores earlier on Get Up.
We need change. That was the number one reason. And I know there's a sacrifice, there's risk to that, but at the end of the day, we need change. That was just a mistake by Belichick. We've all sent the wrong text message to somebody. But in this instance, it came to me, and it was almost, it was confirmation that those backroom dealings were happening. The league's filled with 70% of black players. I know there are capable coaches in this league to lead teams. I have some on my staff. I know, the majority of them, I would say. I know what kind of integrity and character and leadership that they have, and they deserve an opportunity, a real opportunity, not a Rooney Rule opportunity where a box is checked.
The Giants, Broncos, and Dolphins have released statements denying these allegations. And in response to the lawsuit, the NFL also releasing the following statement. The NFL and our clubs are deeply committed to ensuring equitable employment practices and continue to make progress in providing equitable opportunities throughout our organizations. Diversity is core to everything we do, and there are few issues on which our clubs and our internal leadership teams spend more time. We will defend against these claims, which are without merit. We now welcome in former longtime Bengals head coach Marvin Lewis. Coach, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate your time. Please tell me, what was your reaction to Brain Flores filing this lawsuit?
Well, I obviously gotta be supportive of what Brian is saying. I mean, he's the man that's in this, was put in this position that he felt that he was. It wasn't fair. It wasn't right, and he was used that way, both obviously by the Dolphins, that as hard as we work to win football games, that he's asked to lose football games and compromise himself, his integrity, his staff, his players, and so forth. And then secondly, obviously, with the text messages, this is a direct violation of something the NFL has put in place. That obviously, in Bill's mind at least, decisions had already been made, and him getting that from the teams. And then now Brian gets that and he goes in there. But like he said, he had to go. He had to go and show that he was qualified and have an opportunity to become the head coach.
Marvin.
So again, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Marv. Go ahead.
No, I'm saying, so I think in those things, it's very obvious. I don't know how those can be disputed.
Marv, when you're a longtime defensive coordinator, clearly in Baltimore, and your first head coaching job and only job in the National Football League was with the Cincinnati Bengals. Did you go through anything similar to this in terms of the hiring practice where you felt like those interviews prior to Cincinnati was just a waste of your time?
Well, I did interview with the Carolina Panthers before John Fox got the job, and I can recall that we had lost to the Steelers in the second round of the playoffs. And I remember sitting home on Monday, and I think it was Chris Mortensen or someone else reported that Foxy would be named the head coach of the Panthers on Friday. And when I went to work Tuesday, Brian came in and said, "Hey, I just got off the phone with Ozzie, and the Panthers want you to come down and interview for the job." I said, "Coach, I just heard last night on TV that they're going to name Foxy the coach on Friday." He said, so he goes back, he talks to Ozzie, talks to the people, and I end up going down to Charlotte and so forth and meeting with the Richardson family. And, they said that wasn't true and so forth. And they named John the head coach on Friday. So, I don't know, again, that's the situation I was in, but you have to go and prove that you're worthy to become the head coach. And, and it's, you're appreciative of the opportunity, but what was supposedly going to happen ended up happening in that case for sure.
Coach Lewis, welcome to the show. Good to see you. Let me get right to
Thank
it
you.
and ask you this. You've seen what he said about the Denver Broncos. You've seen what Brian Flores said about Stephen Ross and what Stephen Ross was trying to, basically impose his will on Brian Flores and get him to do some things that Brian Flores didn't want to do. You've heard what he said about the text message with Bill Belichick and the New York Giants. And you know what's been going on with the National Football League. What do you find most incriminating against the NFL or the league owners or both based on this lawsuit that Brian Flores has filed against the league and those three teams?
To me, I think, obviously that if the Giants had already made a decision, that's the one that stands out. It's right there. It's within the text message. It can't be denied that if that's where the decision had been made, people from both sides had felt that way. Obviously, the GM came out of the Bills organization and so forth, so they would have information leading to that. So to me, that's the one, and that's what's disappointing. That he then finds that out prior to him going there to be interviewed for the position.
Not to really belabor this point because I won't, but we all know where I stand. That I was not a supporter of you staying on as head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals when you were there. But I never
appreciate
said
that. You put me here.
Yeah. No, I didn't. But that's not a bad spot to be with Coach Herm, no doubt about it. But I never once said you did not deserve to be a head coach in the National Football League. I just thought it was time for a different voice in Cincinnati. Having said all of that, I want to know first, what does it say to you personally that after the Rooney Rule was implemented in 2003, here we are 19 years later, and instead of there being 3 head coaches in the National Football League who happen to be black, as it was the case in 2003, there's only 1 now. I want to know what that says to you. And number 2, I want to know, have you received a call for an interview over the last 3.5 years to be a head coach in the NFL?
Well, I have. I've interviewed for 5 jobs since I left Cincinnati and offered a 6th that I just at that point wasn't ready to do. So, but, I think the thing that going back to that, Stephen A., that I think you have to understand that whatever you say snowballs. And sometimes you don't know the entire situation that these coaches are dealing with within the organization and so forth. And yeah, there may have been time for a new voice, but my voice had to be reinvented a number of different times in Cincinnati. Basically 16 times, but for sure we overhauled things 3 or 4 times within the organization, myself, the staff, and so forth. But the thing that to me is you are 100% correct. We have not had progress. Despite the Rooney Rule, there has not been progress. There's been regression, basically, in the entire thing. So I got young coaches, and part of what I was asked to do and brought on by Octagon to help them with career development, with coaches, with transition from players to coaching and so forth. And these guys are disillusioned right now. These young minority coaches come in my office here at ASU and like, Coach, where do I go? How do I feel good about this day to day when this is happening and I'm seeing what's happening and where is my opportunity and how am I going to get my opportunity? So to me, that's what's disappointing. And I'm trying to encourage these people. We just got to keep chopping wood, got to keep grinding, got to keep doing these things the correct way and then make good. That was my goal, is to make good on these opportunities when they come up for the people that blaze the trail for me.
Marvin, how do we fix it though? Every year we're talking about chopping wood and stay the course, and it's gonna happen. Like, how do we finally get over the hump? Other than the obvious, which is really hard, is to buy a team for African Americans and minorities in general. But we need to know an answer to fixing it.
Yeah, I think I wish I could put it into words how to be fixed. I think let's understand this. These coaches that are being brought on and hired, they don't get to bring that player that makes that engine go wherever they are with them. They have to be able to become a leader of men. They have to have the integrity. They have to be believed in that meeting room, that locker room, that auditorium about their leadership abilities, and be able to lead the men, put the plan in place, put the right coaches in place that can help deal with these young people and get and pull the best football out of them, and have to be great coaches and teachers. And we have that. The pipeline is full of that, and they're not being given this opportunity. And I just think they have to be given this whole thing about, I'm going to hire this guy because he coached that guy. Well, that doesn't work. It's less than 50% of that or more, and so the percentage of that are not good. And when you become the head coach, you're the head coach of the entire football team, not necessarily just the offense or the defense.
Well, for
And
me,
and that's the way that works.
I'm going to go back to you for a quick second, and I'm going to call him Coach, Key. I'm going to always call him Coach because it's 23 years in the league, so I'm going to call him Coach, okay? 16 years in Cincinnati, went to the playoffs 5 straight years, 6 times in 7 years. I'm bringing all of that up, Coach, to ask you this question. When you say you had 5 interviews, what Brian Flores described as his experience with the New York Giants, how often did you find that to be your experience over the last 3+ years in the midst of those 5 interviews? And how are you feeling right now as we're sitting here today talking about this subject as an African-American coach who's been around for a long time, won a championship as a defensive coordinator, and still can't find yourself getting another head coaching job in the NFL right now?
Stephen, I haven't been offered any job in the NFL.
I know.
Just to make
Well,
it
good.
clear.
Any job. Oh.
And that's and let me point to Hugh Jackson, who has coached every position on offense but the offensive line, and then came back and coached for me on defense and helped us settle the situation and helped mentor a young first-round draft pick in Drake Kirkpatrick, and never been offered another position coaching in the National Football League. So. In my experience with those interviews, I felt sincere. They were sincere in that. I think when I went to Dallas, I knew that I felt that they, from what I could read and gather, that Mike McCarthy may have been their first choice. But I have to go. I don't know what's going to happen. They also had rumored Mike to be the Giants' maybe first choice. So I have to go. I had a good relationship I had with Stephen Jones, after serving on the competition committee with him. So I felt very good about that. I thought they were an excellent football team, and one that I felt great about the opportunity to be the head coach of. So, in that situation, I have to go and put my best foot forward and show them that I deserve that opportunity. And so I don't feel bad about that in any way, that way.
Coach, one last thing before we let you go quickly. I heard Ryan Clark say on the 6 o'clock Sports Center, his visceral reaction was, "I'm tired." If you could characterize it in one word, what emotion do you feel when you're reading these allegations and hearing these stories that continue to happen?
I'm very disappointed. I had a long conversation with Vance Joseph Sunday morning. And, when I talk to these coaches around the league, and it's my job I think it's my role to help support them, to help promote them, and help to give them the opportunity to do what I was so fortunate to do for Mike Brown and his family for so long. And so I really feel disappointed for them and frustrated, but we're gonna keep pushing. Key, I don't know what else to do, man. We can't throw in the towel. I can't let the Chris Claibornes of the world and so forth throw in the towel and say this isn't for me. I got to go do something else. They deserve the opportunity to have the same that Tony, that Denny, Brian Billick, helped me get to this position. Bill Cowher helped me get to this position. So influential in my background that I deserve. I deserve the opportunity, or I take that responsibility to help them.
Yeah. Well, I hope this lawsuit is a catalyst for change as everyone continues to fight the good fight. Coach Marvin Lewis, such a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for your perspective. It was illuminating, and please come join us again soon.
All right, Coach.
Thank you.
Still to come on First Take, we are going wall to wall on the news of the day. Brain Flores suing the NFL. How do these allegations impact